Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. If you had them over, they would eat up all your food. It's time for therapy dudes.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Therapy Dudes. I am Andre Karkamaz. This is Dan Fox, my colleague, good friend. We're here talking about part two of burnout, overwhelm, kind of jumping into the psychology behind why this happens. So, Dan, lead us off. You were going to talk about the
Yeah, well,
biology a little
you had
bit
brought up on
more.
the last podcast the sort of experience that we had when we were living tribally, and that was what most of our evolutionary like improvements to the brain and the wiring to the brain. Um, that was the experience that we were having when that evolution was proceeding forward. So
Right.
thinking about like what that must have been like, one reality is that chances are by the time you're like 6 or 7, you definitely know all of the people that you're probably likely to basically ever see, right? Like
Exactly.
you've met everybody before your brain has started to overthink things and just worry about it. And
Right.
there isn't this sense of like, oh, now I'm going into this totally new environment where there's going to be like a room full of people that I don't know, or like a stadium full of people that I've never met before. Like that kind of social overwhelm wasn't part of those experiences.
Not
And
at all.
right. And
And if you think about it, the internet's been around since what, the 80s, 70s? When did it start?
oh,
60s?
later than the 70s for
That's what
sure.
I thought it was the 80s or 90s, but
I
like
think
now I'm like,
90s is probably right.
yeah, AOL. God, my history around this crap. Um, oh, it's because I'm a conspiracy theorist. I always think that there was things way before we got them. That's why a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. But yeah, I just remember like, okay, how much history of mankind have we had access, universal access to things like this?
Right. Oh, very, very recent. And phones in our pocket didn't really
Right.
become like ubiquitous until 2008 to 2010.
Yeah.
So, yes, for most of our human experience, right, that just hasn't, that information overload, that like constant notifications like pinging
That
us and
everyone can
distracting us.
tell what's going on and contact you, and you have
Right.
to be right. Like that's not normal, actually,
Right. And
for
it also
humanity.
becomes um it's not a face-to-face experience, and oftentimes on social media it's asynchronous, meaning that like we're not communicating back and forth in like the present moment. Somebody's leaving a post later, getting like responses to it, and so there isn't this like nuance of communication that comes from like here and now being able to like read nonverbal cues when we're face to face with somebody. It's much easier to like look at what somebody's posting and assume the worst, because that's what our brain does whenever
Right.
there's ambiguous information. And
Right.
to pile onto the problem with one more unfortunate reality, anxiety sucks. It's not our superpower. It doesn't help anything, right? We've already talked about how it compromises our brain's ability to kind of process through things logically and to be able to be like emotionally attuned and empathetic and communicating well with people that are like in our space, in our lives. But on a physical health level, there's also a number of problems that come up when we are chronically anxious, because our nervous system has these two states, the chill state and the activated state when we're in fight or flight mode. So it's like the parasympathetic state and the sympathetic response. This is our
Right.
autonomic nervous system, the part that just proceeds automatically. It's not under voluntary control like our arms and legs. We can choose to move them. But when it comes to things like how we prepare to digest food or our
Yeah.
heartbeat, right? We're not consciously coordinating that. That's just happening in the background. So the problem that we experience with chronic anxiety is that we're not doing the things that our body does when we're in the chill state. And in the chill state, we are doing things like healing injury, warding off illness, preparing our brain for a deep restorative sleep, and
Yeah.
also like putting in the right chemicals and energy to our digestive system to be able to actually like process food and extract the nutrients from it. And
Right.
all of those things are like long-term essential functions for the body. But in the short term, if we're in fight or flight mode, that stuff shuts down. So if
Right.
we're in chronic fight or flight mode, that stuff is
And
just kind of clunky constantly.
I would imagine that that's a big reason why most of Americans suffer from health issues, like
Oh,
that are
stress
unexplained.
and health
Yeah.
issues, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Like
Because we're all in chronic stress. This is a society filled with stress. Like it does not promote any form of peace or, um, we're highly individualistic. We're very competitive. People can barely pay their bills these days. Um,
right.
you know,
And I mean, just from the start, like if we're not sleeping well and we're not really, eating easily and having that food get like well digested and the nutrients pulled from it, right? We're like weakening the body, right? These
yeah,
like, two critical things are already compromised. And then
100%.
if we're not like focused on having our like body being able to like fight off injury, right? If our immune system isn't getting the attention that it needs, then we're in a pretty big predicament. And of course we're going to get sick more frequently.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, stress causes way more issues than a lot of things. We used to live in a society where acute stresses would happen versus chronic stresses. Like things that would happen are like, I don't know, like we get into an argument with a family member, but we live in close proximity to them. And like you said, by the time you're 6 or 7, you know basically everyone you're going to live with or around in your life. And you have to work it out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Well,
and I wanna I'm thinking about this experience that my wife and I had when we were trying to have kids, which was
tell
it
me.
wasn't working. And like so many people would just like be like, oh well, you're probably stressed. Like just try relaxing and breathing. And like I'm sure that Rachel just wanted to like either leave the conversation or, just like do something even less civil when this kept happening repetitively. And it was just sort of blaming like the problem on stress.
Right.
And like 2.5 years later, we found out that no, like she actually has a genetic blood mutation that keeps the like developing embryo and the uterus from being able to like connect and have a good like the uterus can't support the embryo without
Oh,
like medical intervention. and
okay.
and that
That's
was like
frustrating.
right, well, I mean it was like a relief to know what it was because we could do the like medical stuff necessary to be able to like have kids. But for that entire period of time where people were just like, oh, just like relax and like it was just so annoying. And I don't want to like paint this as too much of a black and white thing. Like, hey, if you're sick, it's because you're stressed. Hey, if you're like like that is not like there can be lots of other things going on
Right.
with
There
our
there are
biology.
actual other things that cause it. Just like you were saying, stress does essentially stop all the healing properties of the body and helps like break it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or at least I mean, it certainly like slows it down, and we don't get enough attention as we would if we were like in a chill state with our nervous system.
Right.
Um, and it's something where I feel like the ability to work with recognizing when we have those anxious experiences, right? Like this is specifically our nervous system getting activated, right? This is not like being sad or being like exhausted or something. It is not a superpower to be anxious because our
No.
nervous system is activated when there's not an actual physical threat to be warded off. So it compromises our brain's capacity and it creates long-term health problems. I used to
Right.
think when I was in college that, oh, anxiety is great. It'll make me like get my homework done and study for a test. Like it's very reliable. I can like trust that that's going
Right.
to happen, which, okay, yes, you do get a little more adrenaline in your system. So you stay up later. And to be like sufficiently worried about something often does like demand some action. But in terms of like, is that a superpower?
Is
It's
that a
like,
motivator? Is that a
at
true,
like,
like,
I would much rather have been able to just be like
calmly do it?
steady and
Yeah.
find strategies to be able to like get my work done instead of like waiting until the last minute. And, in like later adulthood, I've figured out how to do that. And I don't mean like late adulthood. I mean like after like later in my 20s and 30s, right? I was able to like kind of dial that in better. But
In IFS, they talk about like these parts of you, like they're like managers, they're protectors or whatever. Oftentimes, people who rely on their anxiety the way that you just described believe that if they get rid of it, their life will fall apart because they won't be, and they won't be aware of all the issues. Well, that's just not true. What's dictating that part of you that makes you anxious is fear-based thinking. And it's
right,
it's like this part of you that says, I'm not enough, or if like I'm a failure or whatever it is. It can be, everyone has their own wound that they're trying to work out. But a lot of the work we do with our clients is we try to help them figure out what their core wounds are, what they're operating out of, what their story is, and why they do what they do.
yeah,
And they find out that when they can switch the narrative to I'm enough or whatever it is, right? The opposite of that, and they can chill. It turns out they still get everything done,
right,
right?
right,
And they're still capable. And now they don't feel like they're going to bed in a panic every night and waking up multiple times or whatever it is, right?
right. And just to add a little nuance to this, because it's not entirely black or white here either. A tiny bit of adrenaline tends to improve performance. So whether it's public speaking, playing our sport, doing like a musical instrument performance, like doing a theater production, a little bit
Right.
gives us some more energy.
But it's not sustainable long term. And adrenaline does not, when you flood the body with adrenaline,
Right.
and cortisol starts to come in if it's like too long.
Right. Which is a bad thing, right? Cortisol is like a stress hormone that ages our body.
It ages our body. It like makes our skin less youthful. It grays our
Is that
hairs.
what's
It
happening to me? Oh my gosh.
No, you look great. Actually, I wondered if you stressed about anything recently because you were looking quite young on the court. I was like, is this guy just faking it?
No, I'm having a good streak with basketball. I feel like I've been taking care of my body better. I've been
You
getting
have been.
more core exercise. I've been stretching more. I've been really working on my back so that I can like
I saw someone pushing you. You pushed him back. I saw that. I saw that. I was impressed. It wasn't malicious. He did it within
within the
the
bounds of the game, right?
yeah, it wasn't aggressive. But I just was like, oh, he's like he's being a little bit more like aggressive. He's going for it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've
You're,
I've
you're not
been
afraid
I've
of
been
injury.
feeling good.
Yeah, good for you. And you made a lot of shots. I had a terrible day on Friday. It was one of the worst days that I've ever played back. I didn't sleep the night before,
Oof.
but
Because of the anticipation of the game.
no, just sometimes I overthink things like we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I get hit with, I mean, these traps are hard, especially if you're someone like me who can like manage throughout the day, but then you go to sleep. And this is where I need help. Where you start to go to sleep and then it manifests in your dreams. It starts as a
Mm,
feeling. And then, like for instance, I had this desperate feeling the night before when I was going to sleep. I did not know where it was coming from. I realized it was my grief popping up around my father. I saw my father in the dream.
mm.
I kept like trying to get his attention. I couldn't find him. I'd see him far away. I'd wake
Oh,
up and I'd just be like, "Oh man, like I can't." I was like so close to seeing him. He almost saw me, and I just, and then I realized I was feeling that way about life in general. I was feeling like everything's just a bit out of reach for what I want, but But like we said earlier, it's a feeling. It starts with a feeling. And for me, I do a good job when I'm conscious and awake. It's when I lose consciousness that all of that stuff emerges. And I just wish there were tools that I could use in the dream world. But usually I figure out like, oh, like in my dream, I figure out, oh, I need to wake up. And I'll tell myself that. And sometimes I'll wake up, sometimes I'm stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You're like, you're crazy.
no, no, I would, I know we talked like a couple podcasts ago about like starting the day and how you start the day and you like have
Oh,
tea and you
right.
sit
The
outside, right?
intentionality.
And the intentionality around how we end our day, I think, is also really significant, right? That we like sort of symbolically like close all the like things that have happened during the day and just kind of, put it to rest and wind down and remind
Yeah, but
ourselves that we're okay and that it's time to sleep and that we can pick up the like torch tomorrow and go after it. And it's particularly challenging because our default mode for our mind when we're not doing anything is to just ruminate over our list of stressful things. So
right.
as we're winding down, it's easy for the adult brain to go, hey, I'm not really doing anything with my cognitive energy, so I might as well default back to my list of worries. And then the worries are stressing us out. It's activating our nervous system. We're unable to actually like rest the body and get to bed. So figuring out, and for me, I think I've mentioned this before, like I often, as I'm going to bed, I'll like listen to a sports podcast that I already have listened to or a stand-up comedy routine that I've already heard many times. And
Because it regulates you back to a calm place.
right, well, it's
Predictable.
right, it's predictable, right? It's not new content. If it was
Yeah.
new content, it would be too activating. So that
Yeah.
would keep me awake. If there was no content, my mind would go, oh, there's nothing to focus on. I'm going to just go back to my list of worries. So for me, those things are like in that sweet spot where it's just interesting enough that I don't default to like the list of worries, but it's not that interesting because I've heard it before. So it doesn't really like wake up my mind and get me like really like just thinking about it and being like, oh, what's he going to say next or something like that.
Oh, that's a good point. You want digestible content that pulls you to a space in your mind that's you're comfortable with, that's predictable, that we're not introducing new information. I've actually watched comedy to go to bed before, and there have been topics that it's new information. There have been topics that they make fun of or whatever that loops into my head into a neural memory network that actually goes to something that I'm still working out, right?
Right, right.
And so that makes sense. That's a really good way to put it. I think people need to understand that predictability is what the brain wants before it shuts down.
Yes, right. Because predictability means safety, right? If it's unpredictable, it can be potentially alarming. And especially that like old reptilian part of our brain that is responsible for sleep
Yes.
doesn't relate to logic. So if our frontal lobes are like, hey, I need to get to sleep, the reptilian brain is going, wait, what's going on with all that activity in my frontal lobes? There must be something unusual. So, out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to stay awake, which
Right. We're
is,
gonna be paranoid or hypervigilant. We're gonna like think through all the things to make sure we figured it out. Where is this coming from?
yeah, yeah.
You're right.
I actually had this on Friday night before my talk Saturday morning. I was like, I just know that it's going to be like harder to get to sleep than a normal night, even though I know I need to get to sleep, right? Like
Yeah.
that doesn't actually help, right?
No.
The like anticipatory anxiety is tricky. So I was trying to do everything super regular and have all my like stuff just kind of like all my routines dialed in, all my self-talk. And like this I did stretching and stuff before I went to bed. I just did all my things. And it's still like, I was up like probably an hour later than I normally would have been, which was fine, right? I sort of was like, all right, this is gonna happen and whatever, it's no big deal.
Relief.
But I was
Well,
glad to be like done with it when the talk ended. It was just like, ah.
I know.
Yeah.
And you actually do pretty well once you start talking. Once you get up on the stage and you start talking, I was surprised with the first time I saw you get up there. You were like, I know this stuff pretty well. I'm just gonna go for it. And I watched you talk and I was like, oh, he's really connecting things. I mean, it is kind of predictable for you at this point to do these talks because you know what to expect, you know what it's like.
Right. I have done a ton of them, which I think is partly what helps. And I have good um routines when I have intrusive thoughts about it. Do you want to hear this ridiculous, like extra little routine I now have put in?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell me.
So in anticipation of talk, the two most useful things I do, one is like a little like positive self-talk coaching whenever I have an intrusive thought. So it used to be that with an intrusive thought, I would just be like, oh my gosh, I need to like think about what I'm going to say more. And I would just like, take more notes and just write more stuff down. And that never actually helped. I would never be looking at those notes anyway. I would just kind of riff when I was talking, but it just kind of was like all I could come up with when I was spiraling was to just, work more urgently at like trying to, micro detail prep the talk.
Right.
But after a while, I realized all I needed to do was just be like, this is going to be fine. It always
You
works. I always
talk
feel good
yourself.
afterwards.
Yeah.
They're going to like what I say. They're going to think I'm funny. Like it's going to be useful. I would just, do those kinds of things over and over again.
Right.
And then I would get exercise within like an hour before the talk started, right? Even if it was just getting there early and going on a brisk walk.
Good
So
for you.
the thing that I added was something that happened in like, I don't know, it was like a few days before my talk. Anthony Edwards, great basketball player, right? Minnesota Timberwolves. He was in a game late in the fourth quarter, and him and his coach were like yelling at each other on the sidelines. And after that timeout, he got back on the court. There's like 35 seconds left. They're up by 1 point. He gets the ball in the corner. His defender's on him. He somehow like ninja shakes off his defender and just drains a 3-point shot. And he immediately just turns to his coach and yells, "That's what I do." And I was like, oh my gosh.
Nice.
It was so great. Like it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it because it was like, it just fits my psychology and also my memory because Obama, during his presidency, there's this like clip of him going onto some basketball court. I'm not sure if he's at like a college or something, but he's got like the whole entourage of his like team and all these reporters that are coming behind him. And they like walk into this like, it's like a stadium with a basketball court, but I think it's like at a college level. And there's a few guys on there just playing basketball, and he just like motions for the ball, and he just immediately puts up a three, and he turns around to this like crowd of like 20 or so people that have been flying him, and he just goes, "That's what I do." And so it like reminded me of that, and I always thought that was really funny. And then when Anthony Edwards did it, I was like, oh, this is working. And so when I was doing my little positive self-talk messages, I would like conclude it with, that's what I do. Like, that's what I do. It's going to be a good talk. I'm going to like be happy with it at the end. Like, that's what I do. And it just worked. Not that that's going to work for, like, that's not a universal one. That's a very personal one, right? Universal things to like reduce anxiety when we're panicking are like summarized in that TIP acronym, TIPP, temperature change, intensive burst of exercise, paced breathing, progressive relaxation. Those are all good nervous system hacks to reset ourselves into a chill state. But we all also have personal ones that are memories that are going to like serve us, like they're going to bring us back to what the original experience felt like. And if it's a very positive, uplifted memory and we flash on it intentionally, we get back that like just the same way that we emotionally preview bad stuff. If we like deliberately think about something that was good that happened,
Right.
we get an emotional hit of that too.
This is how confidence works. You flash the light in that dark cave on success rather than the potential for failure. All the times you succeeded, right? It's what you
Yes.
focus on.
Yes.
And I've noticed this in my own life. I get into a flow state in basketball when I'm like, I've done this. Look at what I just did. I'll do it again. That's what I do, kind of like our boy.
Right.
But also,
I can like see it in your face. I'm like,
yeah, you
oh,
can
he's gonna like hit these threes on me. I'm just like, oh.
But like the days where something else is going wrong in my life and I'm focused on that, that confidence is not something I can access. Or, just in general, like from day to day interactions with people, I've noticed this over the years. If I feel, if my brain is focusing on all the things that make me feel bad about myself or less than or incapable, and I have an interaction with someone, that part of my personality that can come out that's like playful and fun and confident, that's not what's coming out. It's just like this part of me that's I don't even know how it's perceived. I would imagine not very well, but people will tell me like, "No, you're fine." But I'm always like you'll do that to me or like other friends. And I'll be like, "Am I boring right now? Like my personality is so null, it's like dull and kind of numb." And so the flow state, like shining the light on the parts of life that worked for you, is a very beneficial tool.
Right. And having that like sort of like list of like our greatest hits, right? Like whatever that like
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
group of memories is, it's useful to just like run through those and make sure that they're like easily mentally accessible.
And having expectations that are based in reality, I feel like in this podcast, I've had a few times where I couldn't recall what I was trying to say. And in those moments, I judge myself real quick. But I'm
You
also
mean in
like,
this podcast today or every single time? No, I'm just
well, often,
often. Yeah.
often.
Same, right? I think that's very natural, right? It's very natural for our
Yeah,
mind.
but it's not natural for me. I'm used to being quick-witted and having like, you know, but I've lately been giving myself more grace around that because I'm exhausted, I'm dealing with grief, I'm dealing with X, Y, and Z. Like all of you need to do that for yourselves. You need to stop judging yourself so harshly because maybe you caught those moments in this podcast, but for me, I could have catastrophized that, could see it just happen, catastrophized that, and then been like, wow, I'm coming off unprofessional. I'm not doing this the right way. It's not good enough. Or I could just be like, yeah, that happened. We're moving on, you know?
Yeah.
Because look at all the times it did work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Good point. And I think good message to like everyone to just like really be gentle with ourselves. And
Yeah, stop judging every freaking thing you do. Jeez, this is one
right.
of the hardest things that we do.
We're by far our own harshest critic.
We're mean to ourselves.
Yeah.
Stop that.
Yeah. All right. I know we gotta wrap for today. Thanks
Okay.
for listening. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment. Talk to you guys next time.
Therapy dudes, take away your stress.